Welcome to the Home Business Podcast with Richard Captain Henderson, publisher of Home Business Magazine, and Sherilyn Colleen, managing editor. This how-to show helps you successfully operate your home-based business.
Greetings and welcome to the Home Business Podcast. I'm Richard Captain Henderson, your skipper at Home Business TV.
Hey, I'm Lynn, your co-host.
Let's cure for seeing getting away. No matter what your business, you need to make cold calling part of that business.
Social media platforms and email are all the norm in today's communication, but nothing can replace the impact of your voice over the phone.
But no one likes to pick up the phone and call, particularly when you might be cold calling somebody that you just met at yesterday's networking event.
Along with getting motivated to make the cold call, you have to know how best to communicate in your cold call pitch.
To get us up to speed in cold calling, we are joined by self-proclaimed cold calling expert, Nicole Adias, who assists clients in recruitment, corporate training, and sales.
So hello, Nicole Adias. Welcome to the Home Business Podcast.
Glad to be here.
How's it going in Toronto, Canada?
Going well. Still picking up the phones during this time of COVID. Things are going well.
I love it. A self-proclaimed cold calling expert. We definitely need one in today's business world.
Yes, it's a crazy time we're living.
Well, we got to get people wired into making more cold calls.
Yes. Just have that list ready and stay focused.
All right, we're going to learn right now it's not that painless. Or it is painless. It's not that painful.
Painful. I think it's painful for a lot of people.
All right.
Who likes to do this stuff. So
help us out here.
Yeah.
So Nicole, let's get to know you better. How did you get into the business of being a cold calling expert?
Well, I've always been in sales my whole life. I started off getting into corporate training myself. So my background is as a facilitator. To get in the door there, I had to make cold calls. So cold calls back then included picking up the phone, speaking to the right decision makers, but also physically cold calling buildings, office towers. So I really did all the grunt work, whether over the phone and face-to-face. So cold calling can be viewed in both senses.
Well, that's a good point. It doesn't have to necessarily be over the phone. It's just, stepping forward and making the initiative to talk with somebody.
Yes.
So, we kind of setting the stage here. Is cold calling still effective in this time of social media with YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, and now Instagram growing to take more and more of it over, plus all the other social media? How effective is cold calling still with all that social media churning in the background?
Cold calling is a must. It doesn't matter what you do. It is a must because people need to have that live connection. They need to feel, okay, I know what it is that you do. I know who you are. There's a voice behind the business. It's one thing to hide behind an email, hide behind WhatsApp, hide behind Instagram, different social media. But picking up the phone is really effective, and it's most effective when you're using it with these other mediums.
A big roadblock in cold calling is fear of rejection. Nicole, how do people get rid of this fear of rejection?
Focus on the message, I would say. What is the goal in picking up the phone? There always has to be a goal. Is the goal to get a meeting? Is the goal to close a direct deal? Is the goal to get to a next step? Know what the reason for picking up the phone is. That's number one. So you stay focused on that reason.
Well, let me just hit you up a little bit on that one right there. So if you have uncertainty going into your call, well, you don't really know what the reason is you're doing it. You haven't laid that out. That in itself can build this fear of rejection then.
Yeah, exactly. So basically to overcome that, get prepared. And I was just sharing on how to get prepared. Be prepared and then just do it through picking up the phone over and over again. You'll realize, hey, it's not so bad. Yes, you're going to get a few bad apples along the way, but if you stay focused on the goal, you will get better and more confident over time.
So I guess you got to realize that maybe not take it personal, that if maybe that would lead to the rejection, that, you're getting declined on a date or something, it's taken personal when people, you got to realize this is just business and it just may not be a good fit right now for the cold call.
It's true. It's hard to not take it personally. It's hard to not let it bother you, but through time you realize what's what. And it's also good to take breaks in between calls, in between, if you're going to target, let's say 50 calls a day, or to start maybe 5 or 10 calls a day. Take breaks, because you may need to. If you had a difficult call, or you were let down, or in other cases the calls are going great. So develop that momentum in whatever you see fit.
So you're saying it gets easier when you make more, after you've made a lot of calls, it gets easier and easier, and then there's less of that fear of rejection.
Oh yeah, then you just realize what it is. You're there for a reason. You're focused on the goal. You're prepared. And when you do those things, you will get over the rejection.
Okay, we are looking to make a two-way connection in cold calling. Nicole, what is the best time of day to make calls, and is there even a best time to call?
There is no best time to call. I think that's a myth. Some people argue first thing in the morning, reach a CEO or a CFO first thing in the morning or towards the end of the day. You can definitely do that, but in my experience, there is no time of day. Just pick up the phone, do it, leave those voicemails, follow it up. You will get an answer.
You probably don't want to call Monday morning or Friday afternoon. I don't know.
It's not true. It really
Really?
doesn't matter. Yeah, because you're leaving a voicemail. If they're not there, they are going to pick up, right? And people are so attached to their phones these days. They're going to pick up at any time of day. It's up to them when they decide to respond back to you.
No,
And
that's a good point to bring out what you just said about people having their phones, because as I was kind of researching this topic before we did the podcast, I realized that like in the old days of cold calling, most of it, if you're having to do actual calling, you were reaching people on a desk phone, and that itself could be hit or miss. But now, if you get the right phone number, everybody's got their phone with them. They're walking around with it. So there's actually now a lot more opportunity to be able to make connections through a phone call.
Oh, for sure. And people will use the excuse, oh, I didn't receive it, I didn't get your message, or, people come up with a whole laundry list of excuses. But it's fine. I mean, they received, that you left that message, they're going to get it, and you also know they're going to respond when they're ready to respond. So just play the game, stay focused, you'll get in.
So since you're making the call, you have to guide the discussion. Nicole, what are some of the basics of dialing up a good cold call?
Well, have a good, clear introduction, know who the decision maker is, and a good idea is to leave a date and time when you're leaving a voicemail so that they know you're serious about what you're doing. It's called progressive voice messaging. So if I call you on a Monday at 5 o'clock, I'm going to say, hi, this is Nicole calling from XYZ company on Monday, July 27th. It's 5 p.m. I leave my message, and then when I want to call them back, let's say, I don't know, 3 or 4 days later, which is fine, I'll say, oh, I'm just following up with my call on July 27th. When someone hears that, they know that you're serious about reaching them. They know that you're taking this seriously. And leave the message short and sweet. Don't ramble. This is who I am. This is why I'm calling. I'd like to set a meeting. There's usually a reason. The reason typically is, I'd like to set a meeting. I'd like a next step. Leave it at that. They'll call you back, or you'll call them back and reach them. And then you can elaborate once you have them live.
So this is a really important point to bring out. It's not one call, but you're going to have to estimate it could take several calls usually to make a connection with somebody you're trying to establish that relationship with. So what did you call that? Progressive?
Voice messaging.
Okay, so that each message builds upon the other. And
Yes.
That's a really important point for, I guess, reinforcing your message with your client.
Yes, for sure. And they also take you a little more seriously. You have a situation where they'll call you back right away. You'll have a situation where you may not speak to them for a couple months. That's okay. That is okay. Having a good database, having a good follow-up system is really key, is really important. And then you can always take it from there. It's
Now,
not,
when you're talking to somebody, leaving that message, do you recommend having one message, or just have one point that you're trying to communicate in that voicemail, or can you like maybe limit it up to three
I'll give you a,
points?
I'll give you a tip, not a hint, a tip. What I tell people, because I coach this stuff as well, what I tell people is I say, okay, what kind of voice message is this person leaving? So you're contacting prospect A and prospect B. Prospect A might leave a quick, quick, brief message. Prospect B might elaborate and ask for details. Follow the lead. What are they asking for? You might have someone who speaks extremely quick, has no patience, has no time. Well, then you're not going to go on that voicemail. You have somebody who's very relaxed, different personality. You're matching and mirroring the person. That's basically what you're doing. So it's not only what to say and how to say it, it's connecting with people on the level that you think they need to be connected. Now, it's tricky. So it's a lot of information. To simplify this whole thing, pick up the phone. That's it. Just pick up the phone, make the call. You will learn all these tips as you go along.
Practice makes perfect. Well, I like what you're saying about, did you say mirroring, where you try to like mirror who you're reaching, and that's a good way to establish rapport in a cold call?
Yes. I know it's harder when you're dealing over the phone. You can't see the person. But this goes with like what we're doing, a Zoom meeting. This goes with anything, right? It can be done. Just pay attention and follow the cue.
Well, that's, I think if you could make a cold call a Zoom call, that would be even better. But
And that's
sometimes.
No, but that's what's going on these days, right? You can request, I'm doing it for firms out there. You can have like options. Say, I could set up a video call. If that doesn't work, we'll set up a phone call. Offer the client options.
It's almost getting push button. It used to be you'd have to coordinate a lot of it, but now you can, pop that stuff up on the fly, and the next thing you know, you're talking in a video. And I imagine, what's your recommendation if you can move it to a video call to try to do that?
I think it's a good idea. You develop that rapport. But again, if they don't want to do that, that's okay too.
Just leave them the option.
Right? It works both ways. They're both effective next steps. That's how I see it anyway.
Well, Nicole, I do, estimate that most cold calls, at least initially, do end up in voicemail. How do you leave effective voicemail messages? We talked earlier about making sure one message builds upon the other. Any other tips on leaving effective voicemail messages?
Speak slow, speak clear, who you are, where you're calling from, and why you're calling. So why are you calling? You want the next step. You'd like to set up a meeting, or you'd like to set up a phone call, or you'd like to send some information and follow it up. You're doing it for a reason. You'd like to get their email. Whatever the reason is, be clear about that. State the date and time. Leave your name and number. Thank you. Have a great day. Simple.
Like we used to say in the military, bottom line up front, lead with the first thing, lead with what you want from that client, the action you want them to take.
It's called a call to action in sales, right? So you're calling for a reason. You're doing whatever step you're doing in the cycle, in the sales cycle, for a reason, and keep it simple that way.
So after making the cold call, follow-up is everything. Nicole, when is the best time to follow up with prospects, and how many calls should you make before you choose to move on?
Okay, that's a good question. In terms of follow-up, I would say, like, if you're leaving a message, a voicemail, most of the time we're speaking a lot about voicemails today because oftentimes that's what you're going to get. That's what you have to deal with. So to leave a voicemail, I would say first one could be on a Monday, next one could be on a Wednesday or a Thursday. Then you might want to call the following week and do the same thing, a few more. You don't want to overdo it either, but if you space it out, 2 the first week, maybe 2 again the following week, give it some time again, try back in a month. it really just depends on what's happening. Maybe
Yeah, I guess you got to figure out, this person's not going to dance. And I
yeah,
guess
yeah.
you got to
And
sort of,
tell you,
it did differ each time.
exactly. You're going to get a call back and they're going to say, no, we're not interested, or no, for whatever reason. And then when you have them live, you have to assess it, say, okay, when is the better time to check back in with you? You need to know if they're just trying to get rid of you, if they have enough information, or if it's genuinely not a good time. Like, people will tell you, you just have to know how to read those cues and follow their leads. Sometimes I've had companies very nicely tell me, you know what, this is really not our time. We're focused on XYZ right now. Can you call us back in the fall? I'll call them back in the fall, no problem. But if they keep doing that, okay, fall comes around, they tell you to follow up in spring. Spring comes around, they tell you,
And like maybe they're just not decisive.
yeah, and they don't, and some people don't know how to say no.
Yeah.
So you have to decipher, are they wanting to say no and they don't know how to say no? Or is it's just not a good time? And if you follow their lead, believe you me, you're going to get in that door. You will get in that door. Call me in 2 months and you do it, you're going to get in the door. I think people get discouraged because they want the immediate yes. And if they don't get it, they're like, oh, this is too hard. I don't want to do it anymore. And that is not the right response. It's not the right attitude. I think it's normal if you're not used to picking up the phone and doing this stuff, but over time you will figure that out.
Let's talk a little bit about this follow-up. What about mixing it in with the email? So you make a phone call and then you follow up by email saying, hey, I left you a voicemail, if you have their email address, and kind of keeping, working those two in tandem. And that might be a better way to get a reply, particularly if someone doesn't want to, at this time, talk with you. They're not ready really to talk on the phone, but you mix it up with an email too.
Yeah, I would do that. I think it's a great idea. And again, they're going to tell you, and oftentimes when people are avoiding you, they're going to respond by email. They don't want to pick up the phone, but they'll tell you they're not interested in an email.
Yeah, I mean, I've done that before. Somebody's been trying to get a hold of me, and sometimes I feel bad because I don't have time to call. Then the email will pop into the box, and I'll explain it to them where I'm at. And I guess you got to be mixing up all the different types of communication that are methods that you have.
Yeah, and it works really well. I mean, LinkedIn is powerful for sales and the stuff that we're talking about. I find LinkedIn is fantastic for this kind of stuff. And picking up the phone with LinkedIn, you'll get in. You'll definitely get in. People can see your posts. You're developing yourself and your business. It's all showing up online. Mix that up with a phone call or two. It's positive. It's a step forward for sure.
Everything works together. You just remind me, I'm terrible with LinkedIn sometimes. People will message me and I'm not getting the message, and I link it. I link into LinkedIn after a week and there's, 10 messages and I'm not, so yeah, you got to keep up with all this stuff. Well, Nicole, this has been a great discussion on getting us fired up to make cold calls. Do you have any final points you'd like to share?
Very simple. Be persistent. Be persistent. You will get in.
Nicole Adias, thank you for being with us today on the Home Business Podcast.
Thank you.
Thanks for dialing in.
To learn more about Nicole Adias and how she can help you grow your business, please visit prospect2win.com, that's with the number 2, or our podcast website for more information.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Home Business Podcast. Share your feedback with us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and at our website, homebusinessmag.com.
Visit the website for information on advertising, subscribe to our newsletter, read our new book, The Home-Based Business Startup Guide. For more information, visit homebusinessmag.com or the expo at homebusinessexpo.com.
I'm Richard Captain Henderson saying, anchors away.
We'll talk with you soon. Until then,
make it a great home-based biz day.